Hi everyone, my name is Princess Ngoko. Today I'll be presenting on the food system, how food is produced, how it moves through society, and how it impacts both the environment and people. My goal is to show how the food system affects all of us, from the land we grow food on to the communities who struggle to access healthy meals. Food system overview. The food system is shaped by industrial agriculture, monoculture farming, overfishing, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and global supply chains. These practices damage soil, water, air, and biodiversity. As a result, people experience food insecurity, chemical exposure, rising food prices, unequal access, and labor exploitation. We can improve the system through regenerative agriculture, sustainable fishing, reducing waste, protecting pollinators, fair labor practices, and expanding food access. For slide 3 and 4, we will be talking about the key subtopics and core problems as we go through each of them. So, for global food supply chains, food travels long distances through international trade and corporate networks. The problem is that long supply chains increase pollution, exploit workers, and make countries dependent on global markets. Industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture uses chemicals, machines, and huge monoculture fields to produce food quickly and cheaply. But this system damages soil, water, and air, and it creates social inequality because profit is prioritized over people and ecosystems. Food insecurity. Food insecurity happens when people cannot access healthy, affordable food due to poverty, location, or social barriers. Millions of people struggle to get nutritious food, leading to hunger, poor health, and long-term inequality. Labor in the food system. Farm workers, meatpacking workers, and food service workers often face dangerous, low-paid jobs. They're exposed to chemicals, injuries, and unsafe conditions, showing how the food system relies on exploited labor. Food waste. Food waste happens at farms, stores, restaurants, and homes. When food is thrown away, it increases pollution, wastes resources, and worsens hunger, even though the food could have fed people. Food deserts or food apartheid. Food deserts are areas where people cannot access fresh, healthy food because of structural racism, poverty, and lack of grocery stores. This forces communities to rely on fast food and processed foods, increasing disease and widening health gaps. But reliance on markets is often underfunded and overshadowed by industrial agriculture. As we go the last slide further, we enter climate change and agriculture. Agriculture contributes to climate change, and climate change harms agriculture. Extreme weather, drought, and heat reduce crop yields and threaten global food security. Sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture protects soil, water, biodiversity, and long-term food security. But these methods are often underfunded and overshadowed by industrial agriculture. Corporate power in food. A few large companies control seeds, fertilizers, meatpacking, and grocery stores. Corporations shape what food is available, how much it costs, and how it is produced, often harming people and the planet. Cultural food practices. Food traditions reflect identity, migration, and community. But industrial food systems threaten cultural food traditions and replace them with processed, standardized foods. Environmental impacts of meat production. Meat production uses huge amounts of land, water, and energy. It increases emissions, deforestation, water pollution, and antibiotic resistance. Local and alternative food systems. Local systems like farmers markets, gardens, and co-ops support communities and sustainability, but they often lack funding and face competition from large corporations. In this slide, we talk about state-level causes and contributions, about Minnesota food system issues. In Minnesota, food system issues include heavy corn and soybean monoculture, fertilizer runoff, dairy and hog pollution, and rural food deserts. State policies and investments often support industrial agriculture, which increases environmental harm. At the same time, Minnesota debates sustainable farming and water protection. we talk about corporate causes and contributions. Corporations control seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides, forcing farmers to depend on them. They promote cheap, processed foods, lobby against environmental regulations, expand factory farms, and exploit workers. Their decisions focus on profit, not sustainability, which increases pollution, soil degradation, and inequality. Going on, we talk about individual causes and contributions, and how individual choices also matter. High meat consumption, food waste, demand for cheap convenience foods, and overuse of packaged goods all contribute to environmental harm. On this, we are introduced to current event, climate-driven droughts. Right now, climate-driven droughts are reducing crop yields in major farming regions like the US, Brazil, and East Africa. When supply goes down, prices go up, making basic foods more expensive worldwide. Low-income families are affected the most, showing how environmental issues become social issues. We talk about some additional causes and systemic contributions. Global trade, transportation emissions, packaging waste, and restaurant and retail food waste all add pressure to the food system. Because of this, natural processes like soil formation, water cycles, pollination, and ocean nutrient cycles are disrupted by chemical-intensive farming, GMOs, and antibiotic overuse. For slide 10 and 11, we will go through some concepts from textbook and lectures, which is important for this presentation. We will start with the HEP, which stands for Human Exceptionalism Paradigm, explains how humans see themselves as separate from nature. In the food system, this mindset leads to industrial farming and overfishing because companies act like natural resources will never run out. As for the NEP, New Ecological Paradigm, is the opposite. It reminds us that humans are part of nature and depend on it. The treadmill of production shows how companies are pushed to keep growing even when it harms the environment. Ecological imperialism explains how powerful countries use land and workers in poorer countries to grow cheap food. Accumulation by dispossession shows how corporations gain power by taking land, seeds, water, and labor from communities. Environmental justice highlights how food system harm hits certain groups harder. Nature work explains how society teaches us what normal food is. Political consumerism shows how buying choices can help but cannot fix structural problems. Going through, we came across the agriculture's role in the extinction event. Modern agriculture drives today's extinction crisis through habitat destruction, overfishing, pesticides, soil degradation, and climate impacts. These practices push many species toward extinction, and this also leads to some decrease of food growth. For this slide, we also talk about the ecosystem impacts and how the food system touches every part of the biosphere. Stuff like native plants are being replaced by monocrops, pollinators decline, fish populations collapse, and soil fungi are damaged by chemicals. These losses weaken ecosystems and reduce biodiversity. On this slide, I'm explaining the main human activities that harm our food system. Industrial farming, overconsumption, waste, deforestation, and pollution all work together to damage the environment and create health risks for communities. Industrial farming weakens soil and biodiversity, while overconsumption pushes farms to expand and use more resources. This pushes farms to expand, clear more land, and use more water and energy. Food waste increases methane emissions and wastes the resources used to grow food. Deforestation destroys habitats and accelerates climate change. This destroys habitats, accelerates climate change, and harms indigenous communities. And pollution from chemicals and factory farms harms both people and ecosystems. The key idea is that our actions directly shape the health of the food system and the environment. The other impact of the food system topic will be the human health impact. The food system affects health through chemical exposure, contaminated water, foodborne illness, and poor nutrition. Communities near farms face toxic runoff, while low-income areas rely on cheap processed foods. These health impacts show how food and environment are deeply connected. Economic costs also play a major role. because the food system creates financial burdens through healthcare costs, environmental cleanup, rising food prices, and climate-related economic losses. And because of that, low-income families face the hardest trade-offs. Social impacts create inequality growth when communities can't access healthy food. Food deserts, labor exploitation, public health burdens, and environmental injustice all show how the food system affects society. As for group-level impacts, different groups experience the food system in very different ways, and these differences reveal how deeply inequality is built into the system. Low-income communities often face food deserts, where fresh and healthy food simply isn't available. Rural populations deal with long travel distances, limited grocery options, and pollution from nearby farms or factories. Farm workers face exploitation, unsafe working conditions, and chemical exposure. Indigenous communities lose access to traditional food and land because of industrial agriculture and environmental damage. All of these experiences show how the food system reinforces inequality across society. Some examples will be families that face financial pressure from high grocery prices, medical bills, transportation costs, and rising rent in food desert areas. These pressures make it harder to stay healthy and stable. The food system affects both our wallets and our well-being. Housing and food access, which are closely connected, like low-income neighborhoods which often lack grocery stores, forcing families to rely on fast food or convenience stores. Communities near factory farms also face pollution, odors, and health risks. And places like rural areas, which struggle with unstable housing and limited food access. These issues deepen inequality and make it harder for families to thrive. Individuals experience the food system through daily challenges like food access, chemical exposure, financial strain, and long-term health problems. These personal struggles show how our well-being is tied to the larger food system and the policies that shape it. For last, we got workers who faces some of the hardest conditions. Many earn low wages, work in unsafe environments, and deal with chemical exposure or seasonal instability. A large portion of these workers are migrants or undocumented, which increases their vulnerability to exploitation. Even though they are essential to feeding the country, they are often undervalued and underpaid. And in all of that, also got people who are benefiting from the food system. Will be corporations, agribusiness, grocery chains, chemical and seed companies, investors, and fast food industries benefit the most from the food system. They profit from industrial farming, processed foods, and global supply chains. And for my final slide, before I end, I want to highlight the main message of my presentation. The food system affects every part of our lives, our health, our environment, our communities, and our future. Through this project, I learned how issues like industrial farming, food deserts, pollution, and corporate control are all connected. I also learned that solutions exist, but they require change at every level. Individuals making mindful choices, communities supporting local food systems, corporations adopting sustainable practices, and governments creating policies that protect both people and the planet. Understanding the food system helps us see that food is not just something we eat. It's a reflection of our values, our environment, and our society. Thank you.